Eternity. An elderly couple, Larry and Joan, are on their way to their daughter's house for a gender reveal party. When they arrive, the house is buzzing with excitement as everyone prepares for the celebration. The family greets them warmly, and their daughter proudly shows Joan some old photographs she recently found. One picture catches Joan's attention. It's a photo of her with her first husband, a man who died long ago in the war. As she looks at it with quiet emotion, Larry walks over, casually eating a pretzel. Suddenly, he begins to choke on peanuts. Within seconds, he collapses to the floor. The next moment, Larry wakes up on a train, but something is very strange. He is young again and has no idea where he is. Confused, he looks around at unfamiliar faces and follows the crowd off the train. At the station, an announcement echoes. The newly dead from North America are now arriving at Junction 301. Larry tries asking people what's happening, but everyone gives him the same mysterious answer. Your AC will be with you shortly. Frustrated and confused, he goes to the information counter, only to hear the same response again. Finally, a woman named Anna arrives and introduces herself as his AC, which she explains stands for Afterlife Coordinator. Anna calmly tells Larry that he has died and is now in the afterlife. She explains that people here appear as the version of themselves from the time they were happiest. Larry refuses to accept it at first, insisting he needs to go back to Joan. Anna gently tells him that there is no going back. Everyone here gets eternity, regardless of how they lived their life. She also reveals that the afterlife isn't some magical paradise. It works much like Earth, full of rules and procedures. As she guides him to his room, an alarm suddenly blares. Anna tells him not to worry and warns him never to go through any red doors. Left alone in his room, Larry slowly begins to accept his new reality. He turns on the television, but everything he sees is bizarre and unsettling. Restless and lonely, he wanders outside and ends up in a bar. The bartender explains how things work here. Everyone must eventually choose an eternity, and once chosen, it cannot be changed. If someone tries to break the rules, they are thrown into the void forever. Larry confesses that Joan has terminal cancer and that he hates the idea of leaving her behind. He had promised to always take care of her, and now he feels he has failed. The next day, Anna returns and asks whether he has chosen his eternity. Larry says he wants to wait for Joan, but Anna insists he must move forward. She encourages him to think of himself and assume that everything back on Earth will be all right. Reluctantly, Larry agrees to make a decision. Not long after, Joan passes away as well and arrives at the same afterlife junction. At the same time, Larry is being escorted toward his chosen eternity. As he rides an escalator, he suddenly spots Joan in the distance. Overcome with emotion, he rushes toward her. Joan is confused and frightened, asking where she is. Larry finally reaches her, and the two share an emotional reunion. Anna stands nearby while Joan's own coordinator, Ryan, begins guiding her through the process. Larry excitedly tells Joan they can now go anywhere they want and spend eternity together, like an endless dream vacation. But then Ryan points Joan in another direction. Walking toward them is Joan's first husband, the man from the old photograph. He smiles warmly as he approaches her. Joan is stunned. Larry recognizes him as the bartender he met earlier. Overwhelmed with emotion, Joan and her first husband embrace, sharing a deeply heartfelt reunion. Ryan gently steps in and escorts her to her room to give her some space. Alone, Joan struggles with the impossible situation. Both the man she loved long ago and the man she spent most of her life with are here, waiting for her. After changing her clothes, she asks Ryan what she is supposed to do. He reassures her that he has reviewed her file and believes she will find the right eternity and the right person to share it with. Just then, there's a knock on the door. It's Luke, her first husband. Flustered, Joan quickly closes the door and again asks Ryan for guidance. She reminds him that she is married. Ryan calmly tells her she'll figure things out, then opens the door and leaves, letting Joan and Luke talk alone. Meanwhile, Larry sits with Anna in his own room, desperately trying to find a way to stop Joan from choosing Luke. They discuss the situation at length, but cases like this are so rare that there are no real guidelines. On her date with Luke, he tells Joan how long he has waited for her. He says he always loved her and wanted her to have a full life, but deep down, he hoped they would get another chance together. When he leans in to kiss her, Joan stops him. She tells him she needs time to think and walks away, leaving Luke alone. Back in her room, Joan is still anxious and confused. Another knock comes at the door. Expecting Luke, she is surprised to find Larry instead. He tries to cheer her up, telling her they have plenty of good options for eternity. Joan breaks down and admits she isn't ready for any of this. Her husband died, her friend Karen died, and then she died, all within the same week. Now she is expected to choose between two husbands in an afterlife she barely understands. As she complains about an ache in her back, Larry playfully shows her that in the afterlife, her body can function perfectly again. She realizes she is no longer limited by age or pain. Larry comforts her and suggests they deal with everything tomorrow. Exhausted, Joan agrees. Larry tries to settle in her room for the night, but she firmly sends him out. When Larry returns to his own room, Anna informs him that his time to choose an eternity is almost up and he will soon be moved to the basement. Down there, Larry discovers that Dean Martin still performs shows. Excited, he begs Anna to arrange a meeting since he and Joan are huge fans. Anna agrees, though she hints that things may not be quite what Larry expects. The next day, Larry surprises Joan with what he thinks will be the perfect distraction. He brings her to a private performance arranged by Anna. At first, Joan is thrilled, but soon the singer begins acting strangely. He stumbles, his wig falls off, and Larry realizes with horror that this isn't the real Dean Martin at all. It's just a body double. When Larry confronts Anna, she admits she misunderstood his request. To make matters worse, the performer makes an inappropriate comment to Joan. Luke steps in and punches him, and soon both men are arguing again. Fed up with the chaos, Joan yells for everyone to stop and demands a solution. She gathers the coordinators and insists they figure something out. After discussing the unusual situation, the coordinators present a plan. Joan will be allowed to visit two different eternities, one with each husband, and then decide who she wants to spend eternity with. Larry feels this is too much pressure. The coordinators offer another option. All three of them could share the same eternity together. Joan considers it, but both men immediately refuse. Frustrated, Joan decides to settle it herself. She tells them to flip a coin to decide who gets the first chance. They agree, and Luke wins. Joan and Luke set off together to experience their possible eternity. They choose a peaceful mountain setting. Luke is amazed, having spent so long stuck in the junction. Despite the awkwardness between them, they spend time exploring the beautiful place and trying to reconnect. Back at the junction, Larry desperately tries to figure out how to win Joan back. Anna tells him the only way is to remind Joan why she fell in love with him in the first place. Larry admits he can't even remember what made her fall for him. Anna insists they need to find that answer. After thinking for a moment, Larry says there's someone they need to talk to. Meanwhile, Joan and Luke spend more time together. They talk openly about their past. Joan mentions that Luke waited for her for 67 years, while she remarried just 2 years after his death. Luke gently replies that waiting a lifetime didn't matter when eternity was at stake. Joan confesses how she used to stand at the docks after the war, watching soldiers return, hoping desperately that there had been some mistake and that Luke would come home alive. Luke then takes her to an archive tunnel where they can see memories from their lives. Together they watch moments of happiness from their marriage and the heartbreaking scene of Luke leaving for war. Larry and Anna visit Karen, Joan's longtime neighbor and friend. Larry is surprised to find Karen still appearing old. She explains that 72 was the happiest time of her life when she went on a trip with her best friend, who was also her lover. Larry asks Karen if she knows why Joan fell in love with him. Karen admits she doesn't. When Anna mentions that Luke is also here in the afterlife, Karen begins talking fondly about him. Frustrated and insecure, Larry storms out. Elsewhere, Luke grows upset as well. Joan tries to explain her situation, but Luke accuses Larry of manipulating his way into her life, saying Joan only married him because she was grieving. Larry sneaks into Luke's room looking for flaws. Anna tries to stop him, but Larry searches anyway. All he finds is Luke's diary, filled with sketches of Joan. As Larry and Anna try to leave, Luke catches them. The two men argue angrily until Luke finally asks the question that has been bothering him. Why did Larry propose to Joan on the same dock where she had waited for Luke? The next day, it is Larry's turn to spend time with Joan. He takes her to the beach, but it's too crowded and noisy for meaningful conversation. They decide to go out on a boat instead. Out on the water, they talk about their deaths. Larry apologizes for not being there when Joan passed away. Joan admits she feels trapped between two impossible choices. She reminds Larry again that Luke waited decades for her. Larry insists he would have waited just as long if the situation had been reversed. When they return to shore, Joan asks to visit the archive tunnel with Larry, but he refuses. He fears that revisiting old memories might trap them in pain instead of helping them move forward. Back at the junction, Luke discovers the letter Larry had written to Joan, telling her to come find him in eternity. Joan reads it and angrily calls Larry selfish. Luke also tells her that Larry broke into his room. Tensions explode. Larry and Luke confront each other, and in frustration, Luke blurts out far too much about his romantic life over the past 60 years. Exhausted by the constant fighting, Larry finally tells Joan she has to choose between them. Both men leave her alone. Joan breaks down in her room. Karen arrives with a bottle of wine to comfort her. At the same time, Larry and Luke end up drinking together at the bar. Karen and Joan also share their struggles and fears. The next day, Joan makes her decision. She tells both Larry and Luke that she chooses neither of them. Instead, she decides to spend eternity with Karen. Larry and Luke accept her choice. Surprisingly, they even reconcile. Luke admits that Larry isn't so bad after all. The two men share stories about the happiest moments of their lives. Suddenly, something clicks in Larry's mind. He rushes after Joan just as she is about to leave. He catches up with her and tells her he finally remembers something important. He points out that she never used to have her hair cut the way it is now. Joan gently explains that she changed it after Luke died. He says that she was happiest with him, and if Joan is truly happy, then he will be happy too. Later, Larry meets Anna and Ryan, who are now a couple. Larry talks privately with Anna. She tells him how proud she is of him and that he did the right thing. He asks her why she stayed at the junction all this time. Anna explains that coming here was once an improvement for her life. She wanted to help people find happiness, but after many years, she stopped caring. Anna asks if he has finally chosen his eternity. Larry smiles and says he thinks he has. Meanwhile, Joan and Luke begin their eternity together. At first, everything seems perfect. They spend happy days exploring their new life. But over time, Joan finds herself drifting more and more toward the archive tunnel. She watches memories of her life with Larry again and again. One day, she tells Luke that she made a mistake. She admits she isn't the same person he once loved. Too many years have passed, and she has changed. What they have now no longer feels like happiness to her. He reminds her that he waited 67 years for her. She tells him she has to go back. Luke warns her that leaving is impossible. Anyone who runs through a red door is thrown into the void forever. After spending time alone on a mountain thinking it over, Luke returns with a decision. Out of love for her, he agrees to help. They plan an escape. He joins her moments later and urges her to hurry. Joan says a final, emotional goodbye to him and runs through the red door. Guards immediately begin chasing her. Joan races through the maze of memories, passing scenes from her life, until she reaches the memory of her own deathbed. She crawls through it and finally makes it back to the platform at the junction. She asks the receptionist where Larry is, but since she is now a wanted fugitive, she is forced to run again. While fleeing, she runs straight into Ryan and Anna. They quickly hide her and protect her from the guards. Joan asks them desperately where Larry went and which eternity he chose. Following their directions, she rushes to the bar. There she finds Larry, now working as a bartender. Joan tells him she finally knows what she wants. When she asks if he will come with her, he simply says yes. Anna and Ryan secretly help them escape to a discontinued eternity, a hidden place where they can never be found.